everyone this afternoon on this beautiful, beautiful fall day. We have a lot to be thankful here for in Connersville. A lot of that is directly attributable to the current administration that we're enjoying right now at the state level. As someone who advocates thinking differently in our own community, and I think to some degree that's worked here as well, it's wonderful to see that happening at the state level as well, to break those old molds and get away from the thinking of the past and think along new lines. And I know that doesn't sit well. Believe me, I know very well that doesn't sit well at times, because change is a little scary. And when we get out of our comfort zone, it makes us want to kind of pull back a little bit. But when you have leadership that is not afraid to move forward in times of controversy, you've got some true leadership there. And I'm glad to have been a part of the Daniels administration at the lower level and support him and Becky as much as I can, Lieutenant Governor, just as much as I could. And it's an honor to have you here today and spread a little more sunshine perhaps on the inside with some of the things that's happening. Lieutenant Governor Becky Skillman is a native of Southern Indiana. She understands the importance of bringing economic development to all regions of the state. She is a long-standing champion of Indiana communities and is leading the way in revitalizing our state's small cities and towns. Becky brings a strong background in local and state government to her role as Lieutenant Governor. She held county offices for 16 years, God bless her, and was the president of the Association of Indiana Counties. That's a big responsibility as well. She went on to serve 12 years in the Indiana Senate, God bless her, and quickly rising to a position of leadership, and you don't do that by not being a strong leader. Becky has spent her career fostering economic development, particularly through entrepreneurship and small business development. In recognition of her efforts, she has been awarded the Champion of Small Business by the Indiana Chamber of Commerce, the Guardian of Small Business by the Indiana Chapter of National Federation of Independent Business, and a Champion of Diversity by Indiana Minority Business Magazine, which those are all very glowing accolades. Under the leadership of Governor Daniels and Lieutenant Governor Skillman, Indiana has been unprecedented growth in the last few years. In her first year in office, they balanced the budget for the first time in 8 years, which is a tough job in these times, and did so without increasing taxes. They began to renew Indiana's economy by bringing tens of thousands of jobs and billions of dollars in new investment. And they worked to make the state government more efficient and more accountable to better serve Hoosiers. It is indeed an honor and a privilege, and won't you join me in welcoming Lieutenant Governor Rebecca Skillman.
Thank you. Thanks. Always a delight. Always a delight. Thank you. Thank you. Well, thanks so much. You know, this microphone is just for taping purposes, so can you hear me okay? And great. Well, Mayor Max, thanks for your kind words, and you have been delightful to work with. This is my 4th visit, and I think 3 of those visits have been right here at the Miller Center, and I always marvel at the great resource you have right here for the community. You know, there's a lot of other communities this size are envious of not only this resource, but other resources that you have as well, and it's always a pleasure to be here. Some of my fellow elected officials and with so many community leaders, we appreciate you coming out to visit with us today. You know, I always look forward to days like this when we can get out and travel the state. The governor and I both continue to travel quite a bit. You may have noticed that I travel around the state, Bart and I, in that Chevy Tahoe that runs on 85% corn ethanol. We're very conspicuous on the highways. This is a car that's on loan to us for a year from General Motors. It has a corn mural wraparound and the state flag on the back, but it's a great tool to help us teach Hoosiers about the benefits of biofuel. Quite frankly, though, it's a great ride. It's quite an upgrade from those state government-issued navy blue sedans with no hubcaps. You know, we are a frugal administration, and it was necessary to be a frugal administration when we inherited a $600 million budget deficit. But, you know, I think it's in part to that frugality, thanks in part to that frugality, that our state is witnessing a bit of a revitalization these days. You know, there's a growing sense that our economic stagnation has been replaced with growth spurts and with progress. I think that's true here in Fayette County as well. So I want to thank you for the role that each of you have played in some of those new jobs and investments here. You know, we're doing our part within state government in an attempt to achieve a statewide economic comeback, but it would be far less successful if local leaders like you were not on board and working very hard. The governor and I continue to participate in groundbreakings and in new job announcements all around the state. I know here in Fayette County there have been around 150 new jobs created partnering with the state's Economic Development Corporation in at least 3 projects. You know, businesses like CNP Engineering and Manufacturing and Crown Equipment Corporation and the Lex that we passed on our way into town. They're expanding, they're investing millions of dollars in Connersville. And a lot of the credit for those jobs and that investment goes to the local business partners, the economic development leaders here, you know, and those successes just go to show what the private sector can do when it's motivated to succeed. You know, state government can only do so much. We really have only the power to make your jobs easier at times, but individuals like you know, with businesses and with plans for growth, you are indeed the hands and the feet of progress right here in the community. And I hope you see state government as a helping hand in your work. We want it to be that way. Our state's Economic Development Corporation is always looking forward to take that next step forward with you when you have a potential employer or some expansion project in mind. We have some new tools as well in our toolbox at the state government level. We have a high growth fund, and now that's designed to attract more high-tech, high-growth jobs into the state. We have new tools to encourage high-tech research as well. We have our 21st Century Research Fund that now focuses on small business growth for the most part. We have some important new tax credits for renewable energy producers. Now, this is an industry in ethanol and biodiesel production where we've really gone from nowhere to national leadership, and it's been almost overnight. We have 17 new biofuel production plants situated all around the state. But we're always striving to build on our natural strengths, and that's to boost our economic health and to diversify our assets. You know, every community has its own strengths, it has its own assets. Every community must play a role in our state's economic comeback as well. You know, I know Fayette County has such a strong history as a manufacturing hub right here in our state. And I can tell you that statewide, we're beginning to rebound from some of those losses in our manufacturing and in our industrial sector. We're really moving forward there. Manufacturing continues to be an economic driver for our state, certainly for this region. And we're doing our best to help all of those companies grow. Now, I want to mention that my home of Lawrence County and Bedford and Fayette County, Connersville, have so many similarities, but also many similar challenges. Mayor Max and I have discussed this a number of times. Bedford and Connersville have essentially the same population. Our county's per capita personal income is at $26,500 for both of us. The median household income is just over $39,000. Our poverty rate in both, 11%. Lawrence County and Fayette County are at the top in unemployment in our state. Connersville and Bedford have the last two closing Visteon plants in the state of Indiana. So, the similarities are just stunning. And it should be of some consolation, however, that local leaders have partnered with the state on those three economic development projects that I mentioned earlier, creating around 150 new jobs, and yet Lawrence County, my home, has had no projects over that same length of time. So statewide, there is a lot of progress happening, but there are challenges that remain for us. I think if anything, it motivates all of us to pursue new investments, to pursue new opportunities. The mayor's right when he talks about change and progress, and sometimes that's difficult. It's also very difficult work. But the good news is when Indiana competes with other states for new jobs, we are winning 90% of the time. We have a lot of work to do. We're far from our ultimate goal, but I know Hoosiers are equal to that challenge. Our small cities and towns boast some of our state's richest resources. They certainly boast some of the most interesting parts of our heritage, and that's not to mention more than half of our state's population. And we've never been so well equipped to help develop those areas and to strengthen their assets with some new grant programs that are available within state government, and particularly through our new Office of Community and Rural Affairs that's under the Lieutenant Governor. But this is the office that focuses on our state's small cities and towns, and by that I mean 35,000 and less. And we're trying to help all of those communities realize their full potential. Now, beyond tax incentives and beyond business attraction, state government can be a partner by providing grants for some of your community projects. And when I travel into a community, I'm always curious about the total number of grant dollars that flow into a community, especially from 5 agencies that are under the Lieutenant Governor. And I have a ready remembrance of some of them, but certainly not all. So I did a quick check this morning, and I saw that almost $4 million in grants have come into Fayette County since 2005. And those dollars came in here in a number of ways, through planning grants for the communities, individual development accounts, weatherization assistance, energy grants, recycling grants. And all of those funds are competitive, so I want to thank the community leaders for making a great case for those dollars. Earlier this month, I awarded $1.4 million, this is a new program, $1.4 million in rural capacity grants. You might be noticing here that I have a passion for rural development and helping our small cities and towns. But one of those grants for $125,000 went to the Community Education Coalition right here in Connersville. This is a grant that supports educating entrepreneurs, very critical for our hometowns. It's a program that's going to fund the launch of an incubator program, the establishment of an angel investor network, creating this investor network that serves all the entrepreneurs in the region. And they will coordinate capacity building as well, helping our communities be ready and be at the point to accept new entrepreneurs into our area. And this program will serve Fayette and Franklin and Rush and Union counties. So thank you for your leadership. And this program is a perfect example of the kind of creativity and ambition and forward thinking that exists in our small cities and towns. And that's exactly what we want to encourage. We need a skilled, we need a prepared workforce in order to enjoy a complete economic comeback. And I'm very proud of you for taking on projects like educating entrepreneurs. And I hope other communities will follow your lead. There's a lot of good things going on in Indiana these days, but The governor and I think they're being overshadowed by one very large issue. That's what I like to call the perfect storm of events. Property taxes have captured the attention of more citizens than any issue I can remember in recent history, and that's including my 12 years in the Senate. But that perfect storm of events includes the court order to assess property at market prices, and the legislature repealing the inventory taxes, which was the right thing to do, and switching to annual reassessments or trendings. Total local spending around the state on schools and libraries and construction and local government services, all of that together has grown faster than taxpayers' income. So when this perfect storm happens, property taxes can only go up. But thankfully, I think we're on our way to finding a permanent solution. You know, last week the governor laid out his plan for lasting reform, for immediate property tax relief, and for long-term reform. I think we have a rare opportunity right now to solve this major problem, and that's without rehashing and without revising it every few years or so. I think this is a defining moment for the state of Indiana. This is a moment where we can choose to continue with the status quo, although I think all of us know where that's gotten us, or we can choose to adapt. For many, many months, the governor and our team throughout state government has been studying all of those past approaches to see what hasn't worked, as well as focusing on the potential solutions. You know, it's been over the past 35 years since Governor Bowen's property tax reform in the 70s. Over that 35 years, state government, through the legislature, has attempted to help out numerous times, and yet every few years the property taxes would be higher regardless. So the governor's proposing a permanent cap on property taxes. Our plan would use a constitutional amendment to keep tax bills from going over 1% of the value of homes. Now that doesn't mean if you're not paying 1%, it will go up to 1%. It means that would be the cap. No homeowner would ever pay more than 1 cent on the dollar of the value of the home. Residential rental property would be capped at 2% and business property at 3%. This would reassure all of the taxpayers that their bills would be predictable, the bill would be reasonable. It will give our small landlords a needed break as well. It will put that business property tax cap in place 1 year earlier than it was set to go in effect by the legislature. So overall, our plan would give the average Hoosier homeowner around a 1/3 property tax reduction. Those exact amounts will vary a bit, but that's our best estimate at this time for across-the-board relief. The state, what is the state doing? The state will be picking up the full cost of school operating fund. The state will be picking up all of the school transportation fund, and the state will be picking up child welfare levies. So all of that will be removed from local property tax payers. Of course, with those changes, there's a lot of lost revenue involved, so our proposal is a 1 penny increase on the sales tax. This is a tax that all Hoosiers pay based on consumption. We think it's the fairest way to recoup that lost property tax revenue, but it will also keep our economic growth growing strong, in contrast to maybe an income tax or a higher tax on individuals or on businesses. Now, in addition to all of those actions, we think the local taxpayers should have a greater voice in big ticket decisions in their communities. Local referendum votes, according to this plan, local referendum votes, everyone in the community could vote for a large construction project. The legislature can determine what a large construction project would be. And when all of the local taxing units set their budgets, they would be reviewed by one single point of accountability, and that would be a county tax board, a local tax board, tax review board. They would review and they would approve the spending plans of all the taxing units in the county before those tax bills went out. In other words, as it exists today, there's not one individual, there's not one entity that totals up all of the spending by all of the organizations to determine if it's more than the taxpayers can bear. And now the local review tax board will have that authority. So it's local control and it's local accountability. You know, you hear some grumbling from time to time about the state's Department of Local Government Finance, but under a plan like this, they won't have, shouldn't even need to take as much authority as they do today because the decisions were made at the local level. In the meantime, several months ago, you likely remember, the governor appointed a blue ribbon commission on local government reform, including schools. And this is a commission that is being chaired by former Governor Joe Kernan and by Chief Justice of the Supreme Court, Randall Shepard. I don't think anyone would disagree. You know, they are two statesmen who want only the best for Hoosiers. So their report will come to us as well by the end of the year, and that will help shape any additional proposals that go forward in the General Assembly. So we expect the legislature to be spending a great deal of time during the 2008 session. It's the short session, so the bulk of the conversation will be about property taxes. The governor and the administration we are limiting our agenda not solely to this, but almost solely to this issue. We don't want any competing initiatives that we might bring forward to interfere and prevent progress. The governor considers this to be jump ball. You know, this is the starting point, and often we talk about, and he has mentioned so many times, that this should be a plan that is fair and far-reaching and final. When we say final, that doesn't mean it's his final word on the subject. By final, he means permanency to the plan. We understand that there's going to be 150 members of the General Assembly who will have their fingerprints all over the plan. That's fine. You know, take it, modify it, improve it, but we do want the basic parameters to remain in place, and that is cut property taxes now and cap them forever. We're very pleased that there appears to be bipartisan support to at least affect real change this time. So while that property tax debate is continuing on, that doesn't mean the work of economic development will come to a halt, however. As we look for property tax solutions, we'll need to continue moving ahead as well. And I would just end by saying each of you are uniquely equipped to do that, to continue moving ahead. You know, you have the desire, you have the resources to create economic opportunity. When you take on the work of progress, then you take on work that not everyone is willing or able to do. Your ventures, and sometimes that's your adventures, make us prosper and bring us jobs. So thanks to each of you for taking on that role. You know, business growth, economic development, community development is ultimately in your hands. You are the people who care about the future of our communities. You care about the future of our state. And that's the real reason Indiana will see a complete economic comeback. So thanks so much for having me here today, and thanks for all you do.